Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Social Security planning webinar that we're doing today. My name's Jim Pacheco. For those of you who don't know me, I am a partner at Claritas Financial Partners. And we decided to put this program on because we've had a lot of questions on Social Security planning and what's going on, especially in Washington. We've been able to bring on two speakers, Cameron Richter and Mary Kate Clement. Both are vice presidents of government relations at LPL. Full of knowledge here. So they're going to do a presentation. We're going to try to leave it open for questions, as many as we can get in. If you have a question, you can just email me at jim.pacheco, Pacheco, at lpl.com. That way we can keep it in the recording, because if people can't make this, we are going to send them out to them. So this is a very timely topic lately, especially with everybody talking about what's going on, the benefit, are my benefits going to stay, what's going to happen as far as funding. So we're looking at different tax benefits that seniors should take advantage of today, and also what's going on in the future. So hopefully you get a lot of knowledge out of this. I know that the speakers have some great information to share with you. So I'm going to turn it over to them and we'll begin it now. Again, if you have any questions, you can email me. I believe there's also a button at the bottom of your page. If you have to, you can click on that and we can get it from there, and we'll go from there with the questions. So, all right, I don't know who it's taken, Mary Kate or Cameron, but you guys go.
I'll take it from here. Thank you so much, Jim. And yeah, please send Cameron and I questions. We're a friendly bunch. We like to say no topic off limits, even if it's off the topic of Social Security and taxes and what seniors should be paying attention to in Washington. We're more than happy to answer them. So please send questions our way. But let's get started on Social Security and solvency. I know this is top of mind for a number of investors, especially since over 70 million Americans receive Social Security or supplemental security income. I think immediately, first big call out for folks is no immediate cuts have been made. I think cost of living adjustments continue to remain important because benefits are adjusted annually to help keep pace with inflation. Though I think a lot of seniors are saying that the cost of healthcare and housing and foods are rising faster than cost of living adjustments. So I think right now Social Security is going to face more long-term financing challenges than in the short term. I think right now the clock is saying this is going to run out in sometime around 2030. As I think everyone is starting to realize, and Cameron and I know from a long career in this town, is that Congress does not like to move quickly on issues, and so I think this is more of a long-term priority for members of Congress and their staff as opposed to short term. One of the things that is important, though, is that Congress is beginning discussions around it. And I think that's an important flag. That's not just they're kicking this can down the road, but they are starting to go, okay, if we're probably not going to get there until closer to that deadline in 2030, but we should be starting to put together a plan now. So, where does that debate currently sit? I think that's a question that we get from a lot of folks. I think a broad agreement across the political spectrum, first and foremost, is that the people who are already receiving benefits should continue to do so. We're starting to see proposals come out that would strengthen Social Security's finances. So some of those proposals include increasing or eliminating the cap on earnings subject to payroll taxes, gradually raising payroll taxes, using maybe other types of federal revenue, or potentially even increasing the retirement age in the future. So all of those, I would say, are sort of top of mind and on the table as of right now as a potential to fixing the Social Security solvency issue. I would also say that benefit adequacy is also part of that conversation. Members of Congress right now are sort of arguing that benefits need to reflect rising housing costs, long-term care expenses, prescription drugs, financial challenges maybe facing widows or older beneficiaries that maybe would also help with the cost of living adjustment issue that we're really starting to see emerge in today's economy. I would also say, too, customer service is actually something that's coming up with folks quite a bit on Capitol Hill, including reducing wait times, improving phone service, and making it easier to access local offices. So I think right now, where do we sit? If this is going to be a long-term debate, there is going to be more that comes. We are in the initial stages of how exactly does Congress fix this. I think the most likely outcome is not a wholesale restructuring or elimination, but probably a negotiated package that includes a mix of all of these types of provisions to solve the Social Security solvency issue. But I think this is something that we are going to see continue to be continue to stay in conversation in Capitol Hill, but we likely won't see legislative movement until a couple of years down the road when we get closer to 2030. Another question that folks ask about Social Security that I think can be important is there any market implication with this? And I think the answer is market implication when it comes to Social Security is it's going to rely less on the Social Security program itself, and it's going to focus more on the reforms that Congress ultimately passes and how do those impact things like the US federal debt and deficits. That I think is going to be more important from a market standpoint than sort of from a, how exactly, what does this package look like? So I would say, more to come on this in the future. We are more than happy to keep you guys updated as conversations progress. Cameron and I oftentimes work very closely with members of the House Ways and Means Committee and the Senate Finance Committee, and this is exactly where this conversation is going to sit. So more to come on Social Security. But I think another issue that is top of mind for everyone right now, and is also, determined by the House Ways and Means and Senate Finance Committee, is taxes. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Cameron, to sort of talk about some of the taxes that are currently in place. We just saw a massive tax overhaul, and then the next horizon of here is what's coming that's also going to be important for senior investors moving forward.
Thank you, Mary Kate. I appreciate it. And, I can't emphasize everything that she said is spot on. Phase one with Social Security solvency is they have to care about it. The members have to care about it. And I think we're at that point where they're starting to pay attention. One thing that they have been paying attention to is taxes. So last year, as Mary Kate mentioned, there was a big tax overhaul, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which went into place. Final implementation is still happening, but a large portion of that was making sure that seniors were getting some sort of care and tax benefit from that. So a few of the things that were nestled into that One Big Beautiful Bill Act I want to talk about today. There was a change in the senior deduction where they increased the senior deduction by $6,000 per tax filer over 65. Now, this expires at the end of 2028, but there's always a chance, and we saw it this year, that these kind of temporary provisions can be extended or made permanent as well. So that's something to watch out for post 2028. There was also changes to capital gains tax, where capital gains tax were kind of sectioned off away from your ordinary income. So that helps people who are, relying on income from their holdings there. There's a change in the estate tax and the gift tax exemption, increasing to $15 million per single and $30 million joint. And, one of the most meaningful actions I think that they took was increasing the standard deduction. So that went to over $15,000 per single person, $31,000 joint. And for folks in higher cost cities, the SALT deduction was really important. So New Jersey, New York, California, these are all things that really impacted taxes there. SALT, I'm sorry, that's a little too jargony, is state and local tax deduction. So it essentially raised the amount that folks can deduct from the federal taxes that they paid on their state taxes, raised to $40,000 through 2028, and then it goes back to $10,000 post 2028. This was a major fight that happened here in Washington, D.C. And we were in favor of making sure that people were able to keep their taxes as reasonable as possible so that they could continue with their savings. But there's a lot of things that are happening kind of on the next horizon. Some of it depends on what the outcome of the midterm elections is going to look like. There are bipartisan support for new savings provisions or expansions of current savings provisions that could be ripe for a new kind of bipartisan tax package should the Democrats take either the House or the Senate. And one of them that we're seeing now is what's called the Growth Act. So essentially, this would allow investors to defer their capital gains taxes on mutual funds until they sell those investments or exit that portfolio. So, one issue that we've seen for all investors is if you invest in a mutual fund, sometimes you can get an unexpected capital gains tax that has to do with the portfolio manager, exiting or changing some of the holdings that are in the basket of mutual funds, and it can, cause an unexpected tax. Which, if you're relying on, a set income, that can be something that's really difficult for people to manage. So, this bill would allow mutual funds be treated exactly the same as other investment vehicles like ETFs, so that they can avoid those kind of surprises, and your financial advisors can pick the vehicle that's most appropriate for each investor, and not based off of how they're taxed, but based off of what best suits their client. So that's something that we're seeing pop up with bipartisan support. It now in the House has, last I checked, 120 co-sponsors from both parties. So it seems like it's something that's ripe in the next couple of years to move, and we're working on. Another concept, as we look at, ways that seniors can shift their wealth to the next generation, is 529 plans. So these, for those of you that don't know, these are investment vehicles where in which people can put money into an account and it can be used for educational purpose, school bags, So there's a lot of utility for that specific purpose of helping the younger generation enter into college. However, they're now looking at this as a potential vehicle to help younger people save and be set up for their future, allowing 529 plans to be used to help people sell their first homes or buy their first homes, I should say, or help with a down payment. So there are various bills that kind of address different ways of expanding 529 plans to allow them for first time, whether that be, who was eligible, how much are they able to of that 529 plan are they able to put forward. But the important thing is, I think Congress is looking at ways to help people pass on wealth and help the next generation invest in their future. So we are monitoring those pieces of legislation, but overall, that's the kind of vision that Congress is taking at the moment. And along with that, in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, they passed what are called Trump accounts. So Trump accounts are essentially an IRA for kids that would allow, grandparents, parents to invest up to $5,000 per child into an account where, you can't touch it for 18 years, but after 18 years, your child will be able to access that. But what that will do is it allows the children to grow their wealth as the magic of compounding interest works. And so we've seen a lot of excitement from this administration on this idea, and particularly with Republicans in Congress. But again, I think the emphasis is, what are ways that we can help the next generation save, think about saving, investing in the future. And these are all really exciting things from our perspective when it comes to taxes or the next horizon. So I'll pause there. Mary Kate, what do you have to add?
No, I think you explained it perfectly. I think Trump accounts is evolving. I would say this is fluid. There's going to be more guidance coming out of Treasury and the Office of Management and Budget. We know currently sitting for approval at what we call OMB, Office of Management and Budget, is guidance around investment options in Trump accounts. So, this is something that was launched on July 5th. So it is live. Has to be established through the Treasury Department and their initial custodians, which are BNY and Robinhood. But we're expecting more guidance, more capabilities to be released late summer, early fall from the different regulating agencies. They kind of focused on, let's just get this thing set up and launched, and then we'll figure out a lot of the nitty-gritty details later. But we do know it is a bit confusing for folks to navigate right now. So we are happy to answer questions on that because I know folks have had them. So please feel free to ask us, whether on this call or even after. We're more than happy to help navigate. But moving on from taxes, I think it's always important to kind of talk about retirement policy, because this is something that continues to be at the forefront of minds on Capitol Hill. It's funny. I was actually this morning just at coffee with Congressman Donald Norcross and former Congressman Charlie Dent. They each sit on either side of the aisle, and they were talking a lot about how do we expand on Secure 2.0 and create that Secure 3.0 framework moving forward. And I think it's important to call out that Secure 2.0 hasn't even fully taken effect. We are at the tail end of it. The final provisions are finally implemented. But I think a couple of pieces that are really important to flag, and that is first RMD age. The bill increased it to 75. It is now at 75. It was an incremental increase. So really happy to see that is now fully in effect. Penalty for taking an RMD early was reduced. Catch-up contribution limits have been increased, which is fantastic. You can see the new limits there that folks can utilize if you're behind in saving and you want to catch up. This is the whole point of the super catch-ups, is to help folks continue to save more in advance of retirement. But I think the other piece of Secure 2.0 that is in the process of getting implemented, and this is something that you're welcome to move it to Cameron, and then we'll come back to it, is some of the new executive orders that we're seeing come out of the administration in the retirement space. And I think probably folks have heard about this TrumpIRA.gov EO. We'll get to that in a second. But I think what's important, the connection between that executive order and Secure 2.0, is that this implements what's called the Savers Match, which the Savers Match is that final piece, that final provision from Secure 2.0 to take effect. And it is for folks who have a lower income, taxpayers with a adjusted growth income of up to $20,500, $41,000 for joint filers, qualify for this like $1,000 contribution from the government into their 401k and IRA. It is considered a match, but basically that provision, this executive order, tells Treasury and the DOL and the IRS to speed up implementation of it. And how can we even enhance it for folks who are trying to catch up and save money for what they need to retire with financial security. So I think Secure 2.0, again, we are at the tail end of implementation there. A lot of these provisions, it's great to see that they're now implemented. I think this is something that's going to come up again, probably next Congress, just given some of the interest from some of these members. But I think retirement policy is definitely here to stay, and will continue to be top of mind. I think the last piece I'll say on it, Cameron, and then I'll turn it over to you. And this might be a good segue, is we'll see how the elections shake out, but a lot of times we're in a time of split government, and this is when these types of bills and these types of packages pass. They're very bipartisan. They're focused on the average American and their families to help them save money, to help ensure that cost of living is adjusted. It's in those times that these bills happen. And so that's when we saw Secure 1.0 and Secure 2.0. So I think this is something that's absolutely going to come up next Congress, probably regardless of the results. But I think, split government helps that. But Cameron, I'll turn it over to you for some emerging legislation.
Yeah, no, you're right on with that, and split government tends to pass the most legislation. But one piece of legislation that's kind of moving now and has a lot of momentum in the retirement space is Retirement Fairness for Charities and Educational Institutions Act. It is it's a mouthful. So we just call it the 403B parity plan. But essentially, what this would allow is 403Bs to have access to collective investment trusts that are, that are available for 401k plans. So for those of you who don't know what a 403b plan is, essentially that is a retirement savings plan for nonprofits. So your school teachers, your firefighters, etc. It's their retirement vehicle. So this would allow them to, have the same access and returns as 401k plans could have as well. So collective investment trusts, they are a lower cost vehicle for these retirement savings. They are regulated similar to mutual funds, but they're instead of being regulated by the SEC, they're regulated by the OCC. So it's a little bit of a lighter regulation, so they're able to lower the costs. So currently, where this legislation sits is it passed in a package of bills out of the House of Representatives with wide bipartisan support. And it is currently sitting in the Senate, kind of waiting for a vehicle to arise that it can attach itself to. But it is important to note that the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, who oversees this, just was added as a co-sponsor this week to this bill. And so I think that shows that there is a lot of momentum and they are working towards a package. So it's possible that we will see this retirement change, even this Congress. But to Mary Kate's point, if it doesn't happen this Congress, it's primed to be included in a Secure 3.0 or some other bipartisan package, because there is a lot of support for this issue. So I guess I will kick it back to Mary Kate to talk about EOs.
Yeah, and I think the other piece too is like the LPL Government Relations team is at the forefront of a lot of these packages. We were very much included in the conversations around what can be included in Secure 2.0. We continue to kind of work. Cameron and I work as thought leaders on Capitol Hill for members of Congress when they're considering different legislative or regulatory items that are going to impact investors in the financial services industry, and we're going to continue to stay in those seats as we move forward with some of this legislation. But I think sort of the last piece before questions I think is important to talk about is some of the executive orders that we've seen, and we're going to talk about the most recent one, which is this TrumpIRA.gov. And a lot of folks are going, what is this? And it is essentially going to be a marketplace for retirement plans. I think the easiest way to think about it is for folks as you're going in and selecting your healthcare plans in November. This is basically going to be something very similar, except it's going to be for retirement. So it's emerging. It was released just a couple of months ago. This is going to fall under the Treasury Department. I think we're going to continue to see more come out about this in the fall. This is likely not going to get established until Q4 of this year. So we've got some time before we're going to see it. But this is really targeted at folks who either don't have access to an employer-sponsored retirement plan or are small business owners or gig workers. Like this is targeted towards them to be able to have access to some sort of retirement savings vehicle. So we're excited to see the rollout, and we're excited to hear more from Treasury and the Department of Labor as they sort of work together on this. But it is an important flag for folks as you sort of think about what do we expect to see at the second half of the year in the retirement space. This is definitely going to be one of them that's going to be top of mind for the administration. Sort of shifting into like Q3, Q4 of this year. But Cameron, I'll turn it over to you for any last thoughts. Otherwise, we can go into questions.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you all. We're excited to answer any questions that you guys have.
So if there is any question, I don't have any emails yet, but if people look, if they want to ask through React at the bottom of your screen, looks like a heart. You can hit React, and we can open up your line for questions if you have any. Again, this was more designed of a program to get some background information on what's going on. Individuals who have questions on Social Security itself, what should I take, file and suspend, that's more of a one-on-one conversation because it's more of an individual I guess something that you would look at not as a group, right? So those are things that we can answer if anybody has any questions on that side. But if you do have any other questions, again, you can hit React, you can email me. Mary Kate and Cameron are here to give you those answers on the questions that you may have on the topics or a different topic. We'll see what happens. So. Everybody's being shy.
While we're waiting for some of them to come in, maybe we can talk a little bit about, kind of the midterm elections, but more what the rest of the year might look like for Congress. So Congress is a really funny place, and it's really driven by calendars. DC, I should say, is a funny place, but Congress in particular. So for the next 2 weeks, our senators are trying to, and our members are trying to jam in as much information, as many bills and meetings and things as they possibly can, because August happens and they all head back to their districts. When they come back in September, they'll come back for about a month, and they will be working, but they're going to be less inclined to take up some larger bills. They are likely going to have to figure out some sort of government funding if they're unable to come up with a way to fund themselves in the next 2 weeks, which will likely be a continuing resolution towards until December. But kind of there are various windows when you can pass meaningful legislation, and so we're kind of closing on this period, and then we have a little bit in September, and then depending on the outcome of the election, it's going to completely change the type of legislation or actions that we might see towards the end of the year. So, for example, if Republicans maintain or increase their majority in the House and the Senate, they might not feel as much pressure to pass some of the partisan things that they are trying to pass this Congress, because they know that they'll have another shot at it in the next Congress. But if the Democrats, for example, were to take the House of Representatives, then all of a sudden there is not going to be as amenable, open conversations with the House of Representatives as they currently have. So they might want to really push every kind of partisan bill that they're trying to get through in preparation for the next Congress. So that could lead to a flurry of activity at the end of the year. But a lot of it depends on just what the makeup of the next election cycle will look like. And it will also change how the administration, for example, also governs. If, we're having a Republican majority, they may feel less inclined to, work solely through executive orders or executive actions, as they know that they'll have more congressional support. But if the Democrats were to take one or both of the chambers, then we might see an increase in executive orders and executive actions as it's going to be more difficult to work with Congress.
Well said. I think something that I would add that I think is top of mind for folks who do rely on some government programs is, are we going to potentially enter into another shutdown, which is always top of mind as we move forward with government funding conversations. I think September, a CR is very likely. Putting my former political hat on for a second, it is never a good thing for either party to shut down the government 4 weeks out from an election. So I think you're actually already seeing the House move on a continuing resolution that would fund the government beyond the midterms. So into December, we'll see what happens in the Senate. But I think a government shutdown in September is probably unlikely at this point. They will probably come to some consensus. I do think where you have the potential risk for a government shutdown is definitely going to be in December, when Congress is trying to also clear the decks and you have these competing legislative priorities. Everyone wants their bill taken care of. Because the margins are so slim on Capitol Hill, every single vote matters, and so that gives members more power when it comes to trying to push their priorities forward. So I think, and they're all going to want to do something before the end of Congress. So I think where you might see that risk for government shutdown is definitely December. I think the results of the election are also going to determine how intense that risk is. But just to kind of give you a perspective on what we expect with government funding before the end of the year, I think that's where things currently sit in terms of trends. Jim, any questions? Cameron and I can keep going.
Actually, I don't know, Brian. I don't think we have anybody. I didn't get any emails from anybody. So we don't have anything at this moment. But I would tell anybody who saw on the webinar that we have recorded this, so we will have that out there. But if you have any questions, I mean, again, this is a general topic on what's going on in government when it comes to what they're talking about as far as Social Security and different things on that nature. But if you have any individual questions on Social Security or pretty much anything that's going on there in the government, what's happening, you can reach out to any of us here at Claritas, and we'd be happy to talk to you about that. Again, we have the resources, as you know, with Cameron and Mary Kate, that if we don't have the answer right here, we can reach out to our partners at LPL to give us the answers that we need for everybody. So I hope everybody got something out of this. We'll see what happens this year, again, with the midterm elections and what's going on. There's a lot of noise out there at the moment. We were talking about it before we came here. I mean, the daylight savings times out there, everything. There's a lot of noise out there. So feel free to give us a call if you have any questions on that side. So, but I thank everybody for joining us. I thank Cameron and Mary Kate for their presentation. So if anybody doesn't have anything, I think we're good.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great week.
All right. Take care, everybody. We're going to end this right now. So again, any questions, reach out to us. Take care.
Thanks, guys.